I think horror films have a great function. And horror, generally, horror stories. We're all kind of fascinated by what's in the dark. Because we're scared of those things. What I do like about the horror genre is that it's something that I think Stephen King says. In a horror film, you know, what you're basically saying is life is shit, and the audience knows that, and they're allowed to kind of see really bad things happen, and you know, most horror films end badly. You know, they don't end with a happy, cheerful, you know, conclusion. Some do, you know, but the really good ones kind of often end on quite a somber note.
For me, the central metaphor of the film is to do with how and why a country turns on its own people, which is what happened obviously during Nazi Germany. And I think that theme is reflected in different aspects of the story.
It's a story that could be told at any time and made in any country. And it's a universal story, so therefore there's a lot of truth in it. The subject matter about what haunts people. You know, is the most frightening thing that haunts people the consequences of their own actions or something outside of themselves.
I haven't read something that's kind of as taut as this, and economical and scary.
It's based on tension. It's based on the unknown, that there is something or somebody or some bodies out to get us.
They've gone.
We've got a crane here, which is taking a shot from 130 feet high in the sky, looking down on some of the German soldiers coming along and finding the bunker.
The investment was raised through a whole load of private investors using a tax break in the UK.
And we're also going to be adding more trees in this area here. So it's surrounded by trees, basically.
That took about a year to do. It took about a year to raise the finance.
Action, guys! Action!
I'm dead. I didn't actually make it as far as the bunker. I'm in the prequel.
It's like 12 Angry Men, you know, you've got, except we haven't got the budget, so it's 7 slightly cross men.
You know, it's a bit like in school when, you know, you're in a class and there's 6 or 7 guys you don't really like in class, but because there's loads of other people you never really get to spend any time with them, and then suddenly they're sort of thrown into this piece of hell, and they still don't like each other.
The tough thing was getting a good cast together. I was very surprised that once the script went out, we actually found that we were getting every leading man in the country wanting to be in it, because it was different.
You can move to about here.
Yeah. You can't work in isolation. Certainly on a film such as The Bunker.
How far away did all this happen? The ambush?
3-4 kilometres.
The front lines.
Because the whole thing, it goes back to what I was saying earlier, you know, that the bones were, you know, of incredible strength, but the flesh was down to essentially what you believed the character was thinking, feeling at any given moment, regardless of how many lines, if any lines, in any given scene.
Enough! Hold your fire!
He is the commanding officer of a platoon of Panzer Grenadier, and he's in charge of an increasingly disparate bunch of men.
Bauman is Jason Fleming, just in a different costume from the last film.
Well, he's the ultimate Nazi.
you know, fallen for all the propaganda that Hitler was pumping into the system in Germany. And he's been brought up on it, Hitler Youth, the whole thing. And his mind's practically, well, it is warped.
Go listen to him!
They're traitors and cowards! Shoot them! I can't just kill him! That's how it's done. Now do it.
He's a killing machine. He likes war.
This is the 3rd week I've been wearing this makeup.
4 o'clock start.
4 o'clock starts every morning. Just very tired.
Do you want to see it? Yeah, you filming?
Neumann is a 16, 17-year-old soldier, member of the Volksgrenadiers, and he's the baby of the bunch, really.
And it's loaded.
And I think he likes the idea of it more than the actual reality of it. I think he thinks about it when he dreams at night.
I think the most crucial thing about him structurally is that the audience, well, I mean, this is what I discussed with Rob anyway, the audience should really think he's going to be the hero, that he's going to be the one who's going to lead them out of this situation and to safety.
Where's this armoured column coming from? The same place they did!
And that's why, in terms of confrontation, questioning authority, all of those things, in the first act of the movie, Ebert tends to kind of dominate a bit because we're trying to send the audience in the wrong direction in terms of thinking how the story's going to play out.
It's now congealing in my crop.
Yes, yeah.
Here are the guts that are made of condoms and jelly and latex. They're rather unpleasant, as you can see. You won't really see the skin because he'll have his clothes and a little rip, but there's a little pocket in there that's all sort of siliconed, and basically his guts will go in there.
It's not really. It's a sort of amateur cesarean.
But for Grossman, the biggest danger is within the bunker rather than outside the bunker. And I think the other characters come around to that way of thinking later on.
6-4, take 1, guide trap.
Good luck, chaps.
Guide, and action!
I suppose you could say that he's the sensitive one of the bunch.
Well done. Well, excellent, guys.
This is his chance. All he's wanted to do is fight on the front line, and he's been trapped in a bunker, just guarding it, boring with an old man, do you know what I mean? And suddenly the elite squad of the German army are on his doorstep, wanting to fight a war with his help. So it's a dream come true.
Believe this? Kids and old men left in charge.
That's what it's come to, all right.
For me, I've got these strange guys arriving. I don't know who they are. They're dressed as Germans, but are they Germans? They could be American infiltration people. Or they could be somebody that in my mind I am connecting with the death of my son, and these guys could be some kind of execution squad that I seem to have some remembrance of or some knowledge of. And where did I get this knowledge? I got it from this voice that speaks to me in these strange tunnels that are part of this bunker system, and I'm just a little confused, a little bit crazy.
Coming right for you, John. You'll see his face.
And these guys are Nazis, and there's SS people, and there's Hitler, and a plague, and a Black Death, and are they all interlinked with one another? All this kind of thing is going on in my head, and fuses are blowing, and I'm not quite sure where I am.
That's it. And cut.
You know, it takes me back to my childhood playing in that part. And a lot of the characterisation although written on the page, is down to the fact that each of the actors that are playing each of the characters is very different, you know, in different age groups and different backgrounds, and that keeps it very electric. I think they've cast it really well, and they've used, you know, really good and really diverse group of actors.
No contest, mate. None whatsoever. You know, ensemble is great because of what it is. You know, everybody's on an equal footing.
That whole aspect of a group of soldiers who have committed terrible crimes, knowing that, you know, as the end of the war approaches, they're going to have to face up to, you know, their responsibilities.
You know, a soldier's a soldier, regardless of who he's fighting for. In many ways, because the Germans, in many ways, their war was probably more extreme than the British perspective. You know, they went from an idea of an oncoming glory to complete and utter defeat. So, if you know, rather than the war being about the victors, war is fascinating when it's about the beaten, really, the defeated.
There's a certain baggage there that we felt you wouldn't have with British soldiers, and I just found it kind of more interesting.
But at the end of the day, this film is about seven soldiers, a group of soldiers. It's not about a group of German soldiers, really. I mean, I know it is on the face of it, but the story is about what goes on in these people's minds, what they did during the war, what they were forced to do as soldiers, and that's the strength in the film.
You know, the horror genre was always something I particularly liked as a kid growing up, and always wanted to do, you know, either war or horror. It was always something for me in those. But I never thought I'd do one though.
I read the first page, I read the caption, which was, it was a mere 44 years since hell was last visited on Earth. And that grabbed me straight away. I was like, cool, right, I like the caption. And I checked the back page, and I was speaking on the back page, so I was like, great, I'll go for it.
And action. Krupp, Engels, Schenk, Frank. I can't see who they're dragging. Kreutzmann.
Slide 5. Firing guns is hugely expensive. It's £1 a bullet. After we would shoot a scene, and the producers would literally go around and count the bullets and tally it up on the budget, and they'll say to me, no, Rob, we'll do another take, but you can only do this take for 10 seconds. And literally every frame of bullet firing's in the movie, because we just, you know, that's how tight it was.
First positions, everybody, please.
Remember that these rifles are loaded. Yeah. Okay, fingers well away from the triggers. Just go through the action. Okay. Remember, these are loaded. Do not aim at the faces of the actors, the deserters.
Fire!
Yes, I enjoy being shot and then shoved in a big pit. But, that's not too bad.
The times like this, I thank Christ I'm not a fucking extra, is what it is. Oh, it's horrible. He's going to cry again now. Check it out.
No, I don't really cry in real life. I never cry.
No, in all seriousness.
Stop filming me when I'm taking the piss out of people.
Shoot him.
We were all given a starter pack with a little synopsis of what we of what our history was until we came back here, where we were fighting, what, you know, how we got into the army and stuff, and how we'd been there, and then we got a whole sort of whole collage of photos of the Second World War, which gives you a great insight as to what it was like.
Check the scar out. Look at that. It just makes me that little bit butcher.
I read a book charmingly entitled An Intimate History of Killing, which was just about the experience of soldiers in the Second World War and Vietnam, in fact, and just about the different ways in which people reacted to the reality of having to kill people in combat and what that has done to them subsequently or did to them at the time.
I just studied books about the German army, the different campaigns, which I found very fascinating actually.
You know, one of the big things about having a low budget film is it's all about preparation for a low budget, so that once you're actually shooting, everything has been done and that you have maximum opportunity to get what you want.
But it's always a relief to actually get into production. The moment that the first frame of film goes through the camera, the hard part of your job's done. You've raised the finance, you've gone through pre-production, you've set up the whole film. Here we go. From now on, it's just scheduled as planned.
It's a very good story, very clear story, and I think that Rob has worked very hard on telling the story, and he knows exactly how he wants it to be told. So his direction to me is very clear. I come in every day knowing exactly what's to be done. I think that he's made sure that everybody's in the same film.
The storyboard allows you to look very closely at the script and you start visualising the film. And it means you're looking at the film in detail and you spot things. You spot the beats in the scene. You spot stuff you don't get off the page. Kreutzmann. Now, Kreutzmann's the one who's going a bit crazy. Who's kind of senses something wrong with the bunker. And for me, the best thing about storyboards isn't just drawing a picture of what a camera angle will be like. It's about finding the rhythm visually of the scene. And then in doing that, you actually go, fuck, you know, there's a moment there that's not in the script that we need. And I'll give you an example of that in the film, and you can cut to a clip right now of Kreutzmann. He hears the story that Morris is telling in the crew room, and it upsets him. He leaves and he walks out of the crew room into the gas lock area, and to be sick. He's this story's really upset him, and he's leaning over the drain. And in the film we've got this kind of shot which draws you into the drain. There's this moment of him kind of being isolated and he's sucked down into this drain. He's just, your whole attention gets drawn into this abyss. Now, that's not in the script. That came out of storyboarding. Because when I was storyboarding that scene, I suddenly realised there was that beat missing. There was that moment there, you know, which said everything about the way this character was feeling. And it's a great little moment.
I mean, this whole film is about set design, really, in terms of, you know, it's all about a bunker and the underground tunnel system. It was very important that the designer knew how to create atmosphere and depth, really, to the bunker and the tunnels. And what he achieved on the money that we have is phenomenal.
It had taken them 3 weeks, I think, to build the actual bunker. Parts of the bunker walls were already designed on the other side to just switch them over, lift them up, turn them into ceilings. 8 days it took to construct that entire tunnel system.
You just keep on until it just gets better and better.
mean, it's quite impressive, isn't it? You know, particularly when you see the way that it all comes together with the rain pouring down from the rooftops there. Yeah.
Okay, guys.
Quite excited by it, really. And this is nice that I get an opportunity to speak.
Action, Tony! Action! And cut.
I think a lot of British films are being made because our film industry is kind of stumbles along as it tries to get going. We haven't quite worked out how to define. We're trying to define Britishness quite often, so it limits the kind of stories that we're making films about.
There's a last chance you have any kind. The thing I enjoyed doing the most was working with the actors. We wanted to really make them come to life as much as possible, and we worked hard with the casting and trying to get an interesting ensemble cast. So that's my personal favourite thing, the thing I'm most proud of about the film.
This was something really new, and I'd always loved war films and always, you know, really, I mean, Bridge Over, we were actually talking about this yesterday, but Alec Guinness died yesterday, and Bridge Over the River Kwai is one of my all-time favourite films, so even just to touch on what they were doing, to dress up as a Nazi and run around in a pair of, you know, green trousers was an attractive prospect.
It's, you know, it's become very fashionable to kind of just parody frightening movies, and I think, you know, this is an interesting proposition in that, you know, it's a kind of two-genre movie, but you sort of forget about that quite quickly. It's kind of a war horror film or a horror war film, and it scared the shit out of me when I read it. So hopefully, once we start saying it and panting a lot and wielding our guns like good uns, it'll be even scarier.
Take 4.
This is Steve, who you never see, who's always behind the camera.
Always behind the camera. But I do have 3 parts in this film.
Which are?
I'm an ambiguous shape. I'm an American soldier.
Cool.
And I'm one of 7 ambiguous shapes.